Welcome to Successful Dropout. This community is for the outliers, the innovators, the rebels, those who dare to defy the status quo, step off the conveyor belt, and claim the best version of their life. I'm your host, Kylan Ginger. Welcome to the movement that is Successful Dropout. Hey, Successful Dropouts. A few things here before we kick off the regular show. First, if you haven't already, join the forum at successfuldropout.com. That's where we all hang out as a community, and I would hate for you to miss anything. It only takes a few seconds to create a free profile, and then you should get in there and introduce yourself, and I would love to hang out with you. Also, if you love this community and want to play a significant role in helping it continue to grow, consider supporting us financially through Patreon. 100% of those proceeds will go towards our overhead for Successful Dropout and also to pay for part-time staff to take things to the next level and make this community even more valuable. By supporting us, you can also get cool things like shout-outs in the community and on the podcast, merch, and even one-on-one mentoring with me on a regular basis. So please go check out patreon.com/successful dropout. Again, that's patreon.com/successful dropout, or click the link in the show notes. And now that that's all out of the way, let's move on to season 2 of Successful Dropout, where we dive deep into the things formal schooling and society never taught you, and where you come away with clear, actionable steps to put these essential life skills into practice today. What is up, Successful Dropouts? Get stoked because today on the show we have Jeff Hittner, and you may remember him because he's been on the show a couple times, and we're happy to have him back for a third time. The last 2 times he came on in episode 85 to talk about unleashing your unique potential into the world and some of the projects he's got going on. And then the second time was episode 92, and he came on with one of his partners, Greg Van Kirk. And they shared about some really cool stuff they're doing with Career X, and I'm sure we pushed that out a lot in the community. So I'm sure you saw some stuff about that and some of the cool work they're doing in these other countries, and helping people like yourselves have these really awesome entrepreneurial experiences. The guy's just a rock star. We've grown to be friends and have just very like-minded in our approach to career building, entrepreneurship, and education. So. Jeff, it's great to have you back on the show, man.
It's great to be here again.
Why don't you just give us a quick overview again of your story and what you do for people that may not remember the last couple times you were on the show, and then we'll jump into it. I'm really excited to get to our topic today.
Sure. I'll do like the super duper abridged version. So the abridged version is I've changed my career as many times as I think. Yeah, if you could set a record, maybe I'm getting close. But I'm older than maybe my voice sounds. I don't know, but I came to recognize through both my experience changing careers, but also my passion in education and entrepreneurship, that my calling was really around helping other people navigate these really scary transitions in their lives that tend to be around changing careers. They're also around when they make big leaps after high school or transitioning into the workforce, or you name it. And so I started thinking back on all the transitions I had in my life, and I realized with each one, I was always answering the question who I wanted to be when I grew up, and not what. So I was never trying to answer the question like, what's the next best career move for me? I was always answering the question, what's the next thing that's going to help me grow as a human being? And of course, I say that in hindsight. I didn't really recognize that pattern until much later in my career. But that's kind of the focus, or the perspective that we take when we work with folks around career transitions and finding their purpose. And as a result, we've built a business called Your Project X. And our mission is to help folks rediscover their purpose to build more meaningful careers. And we do that through really fun transformational programs. So for folks that are, high school age to early We run something called Career X, which we talked about, which is a mix of developing the sort of soft skills that education, for one reason or another, is not focused on, even though that's what all companies are asking for. So these are skills like empathy and design thinking and interpersonal skills and cross-cultural skills. We train people usually about one Sunday a month with really cool experiential activities in New York City where we are, and then we take them to Guatemala for 10 days. So we also have programs that just run directly in Guatemala and Nicaragua and Ecuador and the Dominican Republic that don't begin in New York. But that's the general focus, that you're going to experience what that's like in some sort of organized settings here. And then when we take you to Latin America, we work with communities on real wicked challenges in those communities. And that's how you develop the skills that we think are really critical to thriving in the world. And then for older folks, we run programs called, one's called the Purpose Accelerator. And it's exactly what the name implies. We help you get a lot closer to identifying, how and where to unleash your unique talents into the world. And that's a 4-week program that meets one night a week after work. And we also run an entrepreneurship program that we call purposeful entrepreneurship, because much like you, we don't think that there's a lot of meaning in building a business just for a business's sake, but for really finding who you are and caring about what you're doing as part of it. So I got my hands in a few things.
Yeah, I should say so. So for anybody that wants to learn more about what you're doing, where should they go? What should they check out?
Yeah, have them go to yourprojectx.com. And the other cool thing we just launched, by the way, is a weekly, what we call Top 10 Purposeful Jobs newsletter. And the idea there is, we've identified what we call the X factors that really will help you start to get some little clues about your purpose. And so we look for jobs out there in the world that are going to help you do that. And we've got a list of 10 that we put out every week.
Awesome. Well, I know that throughout all that stuff that you've done, you've certainly had your mind and your perspective expanded, as well as I'm sure helped do that for a lot of other people. And I know that's what you're here to talk about today, and I'm really stoked to get into that. So why don't you explain a little bit more about like what you're here to teach us today and where the genesis of that came from?
Sure. So, all right, I'll say very clearly, the challenge we're going to focus on today is this idea that as much as we'd like to think we're open-minded to new opportunities and changing the trajectory of our careers and even our lives, we almost always search for new solutions from the same mindset that has gotten us stuck in the first place. And this is something that I see all the time with the folks that I'm working with, particularly in our Purpose Accelerator. They want to make changes for themselves. They want to make changes in their lives. They're completely dissatisfied with some aspect of it, particularly work. And yet they have no idea really where to begin. And part of that is because they're using the same thoughts, the same ideas, the same mentality that got them in that jam in the first place to try to create a solution. And that's just not going to cut it. So that's the challenge we're going to work on today. Isn't
that basically the definition of insanity, the doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results?
Or politics.
Yeah. Very, very true. So why does this tend to be the case? Like, why does this happen to people? Why is it so hard to get out of?
Yeah, I mean, it tends to be the case because of what I think are sort of 3 things that we almost always carry around with us all the time. And that's judgment or being judgmental, doubt, and fear. And I think we'd be hard pressed to find anybody, including ourselves, that don't carry at least a whisper of all 3 of these things at different times during the day. And these are huge, huge barriers to broadening your perspective.
And so what happens exactly when we're being judgmental or doubtful or fearful? Like judgmental of what, for example, and why does this cause us to sort of stay in these same ruts of thinking that don't really change our circumstances or opportunities?
Sure. I mean, there's even there's a biological reason. All anything related to fear and doubt is really going to focus your energy in the non-creative part of your brain, in the more reptilian part of your brain. But in a more intellectual way, it's about this reality that if you're judging, and it can be yourself or others, or if you're doubting and if you're fearful, you're going to dismiss things that seem out of the ordinary. You're going to dismiss things that seem outside your comfort zone. You're going to dismiss things that are inconsistent with your past experiences. And that's kind of ironic, right? Because it's often our past experiences that have gotten you to the point of being stuck in the first place. Right? But our fear tells us, like, that's what we know. And so that's how I want to continue to think. And it's funny when I think about this in particular. I think about, there are just so many like quotes that people will say time and time again, something to the effect of like, I can't reach out to him or I can't reach out to her. What if they don't want to help? Right? When you're thinking about, well, this person is really great at X, Y, and Z. Why don't you ask them about it? No, I can't. Like they're going to be too busy, right? That's an example. That could be about being judgmental of yourself, that maybe you're unworthy of help, or just being judgmental of the other, they're too busy, that sort of thing. And then, I hear from folks all the time that they'll say something to the effect of, even their friends aren't going to respond if they ask them for help. And I run a special activity in my programs where I ask people to do something called reflective best self, where they go out to 5 or 7 people that are really important in their lives, and they ask them to write in a paragraph a specific moment in their lives together when they remember them being at their best. So I would be like, I would write a paragraph of when you, Kylan, were at your best, and when I just saw you light up and being at your best. And I'll ask folks in my program to do this. And it's a really powerful exercise because you get to see who others see you as at your best in ways that you might not have thought of. And what's so interesting is I even have people balk at doing this. They say, their friends, like they don't check their email, or they're not going to get around to it. And again, that's all about like this judgment and this fear and this doubt. And so those live with all of us. And they are really the biggest obstacles to widening our perspective and changing our lives.
Yeah, I'm loving this topic because it's so true. We do all struggle with that. I know I for sure do, and I catch myself all the time. And I'm proud to say I've gotten a lot better than I think I used to be, just because I've had so many different experiences. It's really broadened my perspective on things. And for instance, just how to get around challenges, this thinking that there's always a solution. But man, I catch myself all the time, like in business, like. It could be a negotiation or trying to put together some sort of strategic partnership, and you're in correspondence with somebody, and I'll catch myself thinking things like, oh no, I can't say that. I can't suggest that. I can't solve this challenge or this problem this way. And then I'll be thinking like, well, why not? Like what kind of, like really why? Why can't I? I should just do it, and what kind of thinking is telling me, initially that I can't do this, or I can't approach it in this way, and then it's I have to quickly get into another perspective, and then you're like, no, wait a minute, this is exactly what I need to do. Yeah, it happens all the time, man. But I guess I feel like it's easier for me because I've had a lot of, like I said, a lot of different experiences and a lot of opportunities to practice this and realize the way I'm thinking. But for people listening, what are some indicators that could let us know that we're doing this, that we're actively narrowing our options in the moment? How do you recognize that? I guess it's a little meta.
It is a little meta. I mean, recognizing that part of it is if you're stuck. I mean, plain and simple, if you're feeling stuck, then chances are, and you can't really navigate your way out of being stuck, chances are it's because you don't have a fresh perspective, right? And that's going to be true most of the time. I mean, some of the time, if you're literally, trying to solve the impossible equation, then it may not be you, right? But for the most part, it's recognizing, one, if you're stuck, and two, if you're having those thoughts that I just mentioned, like, and again, you can recognize them quickly about yourself. You just have to be self-aware. Am I really being fearful right now about doing this as opposed to giving it a shot? Am I dragging my feet on something? And, simple solutions to fix some of those, by the way, are just taking what you're dragging your feet on and cutting it up into smaller steps. But the truth is, we all know, we just have to be honest with ourselves and listen to ourselves and go, yep, these things are leading me astray and keeping me narrow-minded on developing some new ideas.
Gotcha. And in conjunction with this, guys, if you're listening, talking about being self-aware, we have a great episode just a few episodes back. I think it's episode 2 or 3 of season 2 here with Stephen Worley. And we go way into depth on how to be more self-aware, and he gives some really great step-by-step instructions. So go check that out. That would be... Yeah, Stephen. I forgot that. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, we just go way into depth, and that would be a really great episode to listen to right after this, because it'll only aid you. So let's get into sort of the nitty gritty, actual actionable steps here that people can take to combat this and to kind of reboot their thinking, to be able to expand their opportunities.
Absolutely. So the cool thing is, so now we're going to focus on how to shift our mindsets, right? So we can create more opportunities for ourselves, but we don't actually have to solve our anxieties or our fears or our doubts or our judgments to do these. So it's a little bit of a life hack. So you guys can do it no matter what. And I've got Perfect. 6 that I wanted to talk about today. Trust me, there are a ton more. And I'll finish up with my favorite one called Worst Idea Possible. But my first one, I like to, is really simple. It's about getting advice from someone that has nothing in common with you, right? Go find someone with a different background, different educational background, different family background. If you're someone who's very anal, and is always, your inbox is always empty, find someone who literally has an inbox with 20,000 unopened emails. That's the person who thinks very differently than you, and that's the person who's going to provide you with a really different perspective. And the super life hack on that is to marry someone like that. That's
super hack.
Yeah,
love it.
That's definitely what I did. My wife and I say we're very like-hearted, but very different-minded. So
which one of you has 20,000 unopened emails?
You'll have to guess.
I feel like, dude, I don't know. I don't feel like I know you that well. I'm going to go with you.
To be honest, it is me. But at the same time, my wife is the one that's got 150 unanswered voicemails, and it's so it's just different. Neither one of us are very anal, so that's not really the best example as a couple, but it's everything else on how we view the world.
Well, I'll just say that's a really great example for me. I'm pretty anal about all that stuff. I kind of have a zero inbox policy and all that stuff, but my business partner that I've worked with for years and one of my very best friends, we spent a lot of time together, is exactly that way. I think he has just over 20,000 unopened emails in his inbox last time I checked. So that's a great example.
Sometimes I show that number on my iPhone to folks, and I literally watch them get anxiety. It's
yeah. That's a good one. Good one.
Yeah. And part of the reason is because it kind of bleeds into the next sort of hack to really broaden your mindset, which is I would much rather give myself the opportunity to give myself the opportunity to have space and think differently. And so this next life hack is about what I call like getting to the beach, right? Most of us are like our natural environments that we're working in. And actually, to be honest, Kylan, you might be an exception because you work in such a beautiful place. But most of us are cramped into an apartment or an office or something, and that's not a very creative place. So change your setting. It's really easy for a day, and go spend that whole day. If you're an urban dweller, go spend it on a beach or go spend it on a farm. If you're in a rural setting, go spend it in an urban setting. There's a lot of energy that can tap your creativity. So that's a really simple one. Again, that can really have a profound yet subtle impact on, or it can't be both. I guess I think it would have a profound impact on some ideation if you just did that for a day.
Yeah.
And then and the next one I like to call alter your mind. And for that one I don't mean with psychedelics. I mean I essentially mean do something to physically change, do something without taking a pill, to physically change your chemistry for a bit. So meditate, do yoga, go for a jog, anything that's going to, create some new endorphins flowing through your body, or from a meditation perspective, like really sort of change the wavelengths, and that also can help you break free of those three things we talked about: judgment, fear, and doubt, for at least a long enough period of time for you to start to think of ideas in new directions.
Yeah, I love those two. We own a yoga studio, and I jog every day, and so I'm reading through these, and it's like, oh yeah, that's why life is so good. I think I'm hitting most of these every day, man. It's amazing.
Or you like to snowboard, right?
Yeah, I love to snowboard, and it is frankly amazing how much that can help. I haven't exercised today yet, and I didn't exercise yesterday, and so I'm being pretty honest. Only 2 days I've missed in a couple weeks, actually, but I can feel a difference. I definitely can feel a difference, and even going out for a run for say 5 minutes and getting that heart rate up, it does change your thinking. For me, I just get more positive and more energy with which to tackle the day. But changing your setting too, man, so important. Some of my greatest revelations, and I have a small stack of papers that I've taken backpacking with me in the past. I usually take like a couple blank sheets of paper and a pen. Like, you don't want to carry that much when you're backpacking, but you're way out in the wilderness and you're just out there alone. You're going back to some really basic survival skills. Like, all you're thinking about is where you're going to get water, where you're going to make food and settle down for the night and that stuff. You don't have your phone, and it really clears your head. And I've done some of my best thinking and like decision making, and I journal about it. And then it's so cool to look back over the years and realize, I looked at a piece of paper backpacking from like 5 years ago, and I wrote down all these things like, I want to work, have an online business and make money online. I want to be able to live in my dream location and have this and have that and this kind of relationship. And all these things came true, looking back at this 5 years ago when I wrote that down. And but I don't think I would have become that clear on what I wanted had I not frequently just taken a break from everything and gotten out there and changed my setting. Totally.
And actually, taking a break, there's another really simple way to do it that I think is sort of the fourth life hack on this, which is throw away your phone for a day. I come from a part of the country where we call it Tech Shabbat. And a lot of people do it as part of a Jewish practice where you don't use technology from sundown on Friday night to sundown on Saturday night. Mm-hmm. And some people have just adopted it as we're not going to use their phones for Friday to Saturday. And it is so important because we need to get bored. right? Like our phones are such a distraction. They distract us from getting bored. They distract us from letting our minds wander. And when you let your mind wander, that's when all the circuits start to sort of, gel together and come up with new ideas. And if we don't give ourselves a chance to do that, like, we're missing out. And that one's, again, a really simple thing you can do. And by the way, when you do it, one of the things, because I love to do it, one of the things I do is I carry like a notebook that's about the size of my phone, and I keep it in my pocket for those 24 hours.
Oh, there you go.
I actually feel a little insecure without my phone because I'm so used to having it in my pocket. But by having that little notebook, I can also then take it out when an idea pops up. And sometimes those ideas for me will be like randomly like, oh, shoot, I forgot to email someone from last week, as you imagine, since I have 20,000 emails. But but it'll also be, I like, here's an idea and I don't want to lose it before tomorrow when I have a technology way to write it down. So that's a way that makes it really helpful to take advantage of actually doing that sort of tech Shabbat for.
So do you still do that once a week then?
Yes. Although some weeks better than others, I must say. We have a 1-year-old son, so sometimes the phone is required if we're doing different things and one of us has our son and the other doesn't. So it just depends. But I definitely try to do it for 24 hours.
No, I get that. We grew up Seventh-day Adventist, and so kind of had some of the same practices growing up. Sundown on Friday, just to kind of put all that stuff away and focus on something else and sort of disconnect from the world and rest, for a 24-hour period. And you can't take that for granted. It's very, very special and very beneficial.
It's useful. I mean, that's why the ancients have been doing it for thousands and thousands of years. So
Awesome.
And then, the other thing you mentioned too, like, when you went out camping and such, that you were able to sort of visualize and then write down, the things you wanted in your future. And one of the things that we talk about to do is actually drawing your future fulfilled. So this is the next way to open your mindset. And the reason I say draw it is very specific, because the act of tapping into your creative self, and we are all definitely creative, can have a profound effect on changing your perspective. And so, in my program, it tends to be around draw yourself, in 20 years, for instance, with a future fulfilled. So with all the things that you want. And the truth is, a lot of people can't actually vocalize what that future is, but I'm asking them to get creative and draw it. And so many people, first of all, haven't drawn in ages. But regardless of if you struggle with drawing or struggle with imagining what your future fulfilled is, just the act of doing that, again, it's sort of shifting your mindset. You're using different muscles, so to speak, and it can also have a big impact on how you think about things.
That is extremely interesting, actually, because I've experienced that. So it's hard to sort of analytically think, 5-10 years from now, what do you want your life to look like? But if you're just creatively free-flowing, trying to, actually draw it, that does open up a whole nother part of your mind. That's really interesting. I would also put, because I'll do this, I can only draw like stick figures. So if you accept stick figures, I'm in. But I'll do something similar to this that I feel like opens up the same part of your mind with Pinterest, actually, with a few vision boards we have. I'll actually just surf through Pinterest. And, it's such a creative space where so many creative people put their projects. And being able to surf through those, really, it can become easy to, we have a couple boards that sort of outline, here's the kind of maybe vehicles and house we want to own, in 5-10 years, stuff like that. And that really helps me get into that space as well. Yeah,
that's a great one, actually. I love that idea. Mm-hmm. That's really good.
And then every morning you can kind of visualize it and hold those images in your brain. It's really powerful.
It's great. I know a lot of friends that do that annually, like once a year, right at the beginning of the year, they do a vision board for the year, but it's super powerful to do it any number of times. The last one, which I say for last because it's truly my favorite and truly what I utilize in absolutely every transformational program that we run, is called Worst Idea Possible. And the name sort of says it all, right? So let's say, I'll use an example actually from someone that was in a program of mine recently. They said, I think my dream is to open a coffee shop, but like I just don't know how to get started. And I was like, okay, well, you're going to do worst idea possible. So I want you to come up with like 5 of the worst ideas related to opening a coffee shop, and let's write them down. And so first they were having they were struggling a little bit to figure out like what a worst idea was. And I was like, how about this? The coffee shop is only open from 2:00 in the morning until 5:00 in the morning, right? Or like the coffee shop only serves like hot coffee that's espresso style, and if you ask for anything else, you get laughed out of the coffee shop, right? So these are examples of like worst idea possible. And so your goal is to accumulate a list of them, right? But then here's the trick. You'll look at that list and you'll go, that idea was crazy, of course, but maybe there's some little nugget in there that's actually really creative. So like, okay, maybe you don't want to be the only coffee shop that's open in the middle of the night, but like, what if you, there's something in New York, for instance, called Daybreaker, which is a dance party in the morning. And what if you created some sort of traveling coffee cart that was only open from like 4 to 6 a.m. for all the people that go to the morning dance party as a way to like start your business. Like that idea would have never popped up if we hadn't done worst idea possible, right? So that's an example. And then the other aspect of it too is to bring 2 or 3 or 4 people in to help with the worst ideas possible, because the more the merrier. And the whole point is when you are actually throwing out ideas that you think will never work, that are stupid, that are crazy, that are the worst ideas possible, what are you doing? You're actually getting past those barriers of judgment, of fear, and of doubt, right?
Oh,
because you're giving yourself the permission. You're giving yourself the permission. And so it's an awesome activity if you're stuck on anything that you're trying to be creative about. And so we really manage that for all of the, we manage it as an activity for all of the folks in our entrepreneurial program and in our purpose accelerator. And it seemed to be really useful, in particular for the folks that were carrying a lot of those barriers with them.
That's amazing. I may actually use that exercise on something I'm working on today, actually, because I was just doing it while you were talking, and it's sort of expanding my mind. But no, that's amazing. I'm glad you saved the best for last there, man. Awesome. Well, amazing. So again, I guess if you're listening, a quick recap would be if you're feeling stuck right now in whatever you're pursuing in life, if you just feel like you're in a rut and like your thinking is in a rut and it's not helping you get out of where you are and move from point A to point B, then these 6 steps I think are fantastic to start with. So get advice from somebody that has nothing in common with you. If you have a 0 inbox policy, find that friend with 20,000 unopened emails, or vice versa. Change your setting, hit the beach, get out of what you're used to, alter your mind, meditate, do some yoga, exercise, etc. Throw away your phone, draw your future fulfilled, and then again, try to think of the worst ideas possible. That ought to be a fun one. I wonder if we can do something like in the forum or in the Facebook group. That would be a lot of fun to like have people just do a thread where people are kind of explaining what they do or what their business is, project, and then we just throw out like the worst ideas. That'd be a lot of fun. We'll have
as long as everyone's on board.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody will have to listen to this episode first, then we'll do it. Awesome. Well, Jeff, I really appreciate you coming on the show again today. Amazing value, so much value as always. Again, for people listening, what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, best way, either our website, www.yourprojectx.com, or you can just email me, jeff@yourprojectx.com.
Fantastic. Well, successful dropouts, you are the average of the 5 people you hang around the most, and you've been hanging out with Kylan and Jeff today, learning everything the traditional system never taught you. For everything we talked about today, visit successfuldropout.com and type Jeff into the search bar, and the show notes will pop right up. And as always, stay hungry, stay foolish.